That's all right. And we'll see. I hope it's okay. And we'll go out. That,
Let's see how do
bring me out on my right.
Edyn, sound check.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Yep.
Hopefully.
I'm gonna plug my computer into the wall instead of using wireless just to make sure I've got best.
Sure. We love to see faces, so if you want to turn on your video and you feel comfortable, we would love that.
So I was reading on the division's guidelines, it actually says they need to have faces on. So I think we're gonna have to start
Okay.
enforcing that. So
It's official. Turn your video on. Don't care what's going on. We just want to see your faces.
as long as they've got clothes on.
Love that.
I can't hear you.
What? Colette, can you hear us? Maybe she was talking to somebody else. Okay, let's see. Oh, Colette can't hear anything. Try logging out and logging back in. Let's see, maybe she can't hear anything. So I guess that doesn't
Have
help.
her check her volume as well. Sometimes I have mine muted and then I'm like, hey, I can't hear anybody. So
Okay. Let's see, Denise, that's fine. Let's see.
you can see my screen, right?
I can, uh-huh. There's a way to turn off that dinging noise and I can't figure out how. So that when people are entering, you don't hear, can you hear that ding every time people enter?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, for those of you who are just joining, the Board of Education who lets us do these CE classes is asking that we require everybody to turn on their cameras. So we would really appreciate it if you turn on your cameras.
Yeah, I think that's a new thing because I just was reading the guidelines and it's like, oh, they need to be there present. We need to be able to monitor. So
I'm wondering if that's kind of, you know, the new guidelines since they're letting us continue doing Zoom, right? So. Okay. Let's make sure.
Feels like we should have some music going on or something.
Isn't that funny? Anybody have any stories they want to tell?
Leave.
We need some Halloween music and a
Oh.
costume parade or something.
Should have done that.
Hey, I wore my costume yesterday, so I'm good for the year. So.
There we go. Check that box.
And I was told it was the same costume I wore last year.
I was gonna say that.
Nice costume. You wore it last year. It's the only costume I have.
Until it breaks, why would you change it?
That's right. I'm a guy.
Okay, I'm gonna put in the chat my email address. We'll just have you send, we'll be giving some words like normal. We'll be giving some special words that you have to remember to show us that you're paying attention. So I'll put those I'll put my email address in the chat a couple different times so that people can email those words. So keep track. I think we typically do 4 words, James.
We're gonna do
Have to get-
5.
We're gonna do
5
5
today, and they have to get 4 of them right.
Okay, 4 of the 5 you'll have to send to me in an email. I do have, because this was a pre-registered class, I have your, or I should have your real estate license numbers. So yeah, if you can just send those words over, then I'll know that you watched the whole class and participated. Another thing that we really appreciate in our classes is if you and just, we like it, it's easier in these big of a classes if you kind of keep your volume muted, but we appreciate comments. So when you feel free to comment, ask questions. You can ask questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat as well. Okay, we'll probably just wait a couple more minutes before we get started.
While we're waiting, let's talk about rates and kind of where they're headed. Do you want to take that, Edyn? You want me to?
Yeah, so I just locked in a cash out refinance at 3.125 this morning, which I was really surprised. So it was a 20-year.
Okay.
But still, that was really good. So we're more at 3.3, for cash out refinances. But I locked in a purchase yesterday at 3.125. So we're a little higher than we have seen in the past, a little bit above the 3%, still really good. When people come in and ask about rates, I'm like, how did 3% become a bad rate? Like, when did that happen? So, anything under 6 is a good rate. We look at the past and what things have been, and lower rates help us buy more, but at the same time, rates are really, really good still. So.
It's funny. I remember 8 years ago, Edyn, I locked in a guy. I called up my buddy. Rates dropped to 3.125. It's the lowest they'd ever been. And he's like, maybe I need to think about it. I'm like, no, you're at 4.5%. You don't have to think about it. And then nowadays that's common. So it's like,
Right.
Yeah, 3.1 is crazy. Anybody know where rates are headed? Just point your finger. You think they're going to stay the same, go up, go down? What do you guys think?
Have an
Ellen,
up
is
from
that
the
an up?
comments.
Yeah, the Fed has announced, what's keeping rates low, guys, is the Fed's been buying unlimited bonds, mortgage-backed securities. And they announced about 3 weeks ago that they're going to start tapering that in 2022 instead of 2023. And we had a 1/4 point rate increase within the first, couple weeks after that. We anticipate rates to stay low sometime for the next 6 months or so. No, obviously no one knows, but when the Fed starts tapering and stops lowering their buying power, which means the supply will decrease, which means rates are going to go up. Any family, friends that are looking to buy, I think now is still a great time to get low rates. So
It's 10:05. I mean, I'll still kind of let people in until maybe, for another 5 minutes, but I think we should get started.
Yep.
I wanted to we talked a little bit about rates, so don't worry about rates. Rates are really good. They are on the rise. So if you have people who are kind of on the fence and not sure when they should buy, now's a good time. Yesterday is the best time. So we're really excited about the market. I'm excited to be in this industry. I'm excited to know you and work with you and rub shoulders with you and provide some of these classes. I'm really glad James can be here. A lot of times will find people that can help me with classes and facilitate this, but it's super fun to be a part of this. And I wanted to tell you a little bit, a lot of you have heard about Goldcrest Homes. If you haven't gone and looked at them, I'm a preferred lender for them, and they're an up and coming new builder, been in the business for a long time, but they're in Tooele right now, moving to Bear Lake, American Fork, Layton, Riverton. They're predicted to have about 300 homes ready next year in the market. So they're all spec homes, and they're not arguing about the price. If you get pre-approved, you can go on a list for the house you want and then go under contract with that set price. So they're really awesome. Check them out. And if you need help with your clients, if they're interested, give me a call. So today we're going to talk a little bit about pre-approvals, something that every client needs to do. When they come to you, you'll probably one of your first questions is, have you been pre-approved with the lender? I'm guessing. And you can't really take them shopping or know what to look for them until you know what they qualify for. And so we're doing a class today about that process and kind of just giving you as agents a little bit more information about that process so that you can kind of understand what we're doing and know what your clients are kind of going to be doing while we do that pre-approval process. James has been in the business for 20 plus years. I've been in the business for a little over 2 years, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing and been able to be successful and enjoy what I do. And that's something that not very many people can say, I think. So that's always a plus when you enjoy what you do. So I hope you guys do too, enjoy helping people. And I'm going to kind of let James start out, and then we'll kind of tag team this class.
Thank you, Edyn. Good morning, everyone. Who's excited to be here? Yay, right? Okay, I'm excited to be here. I love teaching. This is fun for me. I enjoy this. And today's class is packed with a lot of information. I do want some participation. As we mentioned before, we're going to give 5 keywords throughout. They're random keywords. There's no way you're going to guess them. The only way you're going to know them is you got to pay attention to get credit for today's class. Per state of Utah guidelines, you have to email 4 of those keywords to Edyn. Very good. Everybody open up your chat box really quick. And I'd love for you just to chat. Tell me how long you've been in the business, just number of years, and one thing you hope to learn from today's class. So add one more thing, what you hope to learn from today's class. Go ahead and go. And we've got a ton of information. If you guys are okay, 16, good job, 33 years, 1 year, we got some new, hey, we got a newbie, good job, awesome, less than a year, first year, good. Okay, 4 of them. Okay, we've got some, good, better pre-qualifying, good, awesome. Okay, approval tips, good. Okay, hey, we got a good group here. Looks like we've got some newer people, we've got some older people. And let's go ahead and get started. This is a 2-hour course, and we are allowed 2 10-minute breaks. I always ask the question just for fun, but the answer is the same. The question is always, do we want to take the breaks and go the full 2 hours, or do we want to skip the breaks and get out? And in 10 plus years of doing this, it's always the same answer, which is skip the breaks and get out early. You guys all okay with that? Give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay. Very good. Awesome. Yep. Yes. Okay. Very good. Skip. Okay. I love it. All right. What we hope to accomplish today is give you a little bit more information on what goes into the pre-approval process. And really, as an agent, it's not your job to know the pre-approval, but you've got to be kind of a judge sometimes, especially if you're a listing agent, you've got multiple offers, or, you're a buyer's agent. And you don't want to spend evenings and weekends really until you know for sure that that client is, can buy a home. So just a quick story. I met a loan or an agent once, and how I met him was his broker told him to call me. He was 2 weeks into the buying process with his client, and the loan officer went silent on him. So nightmare scenario, right? As an agent, you don't know where the loan is. Your loan officer is not picking up, can't hear him or anything like that. And the broker said, you know what, get away from that loan officer right now. Go call my guy, James. And so he calls me up on a Friday night. I meet with him Saturday morning. I get the paperwork that the client had given everything to the other loan officer. I call the client, and over the phone, everything sounded good. Okay. Based on what she told me she made, based on her credit, all that stuff. Looks good. I had the client fill out an online application. I got pay stubs, W-2s, and pulled credit. I looked at what her debts were, but then I looked at her pay stubs, and I could see the problem right there. Loan officer had initially pre-approved based on what the client told them. And based on, and of course, what's the client going to say if they make, are they going to say the income is higher, or is it going to be lower? In this case, she had went best case scenario, but her income fluctuated. And as a lender, we have to take an average. And she had gone, 3 months ago, she'd made this much, and that's what she told us she made. But the reality is she made this much money. And the problem is the home was $20,000 over her limit. Short story, make a long story short, she got frustrated and she gave up, and the agent lost a client because of that. All that needed to have happened was a good, correct pre-approval done. They'd have been looking $20,000 less. Client would not have gotten frustrated, and they would have had a sell, and client would have gotten their home. So that's kind of some of the things that I want to talk about today, how we make sure that all happens correctly and in the best form. So let's just start with some mortgage 101. Okay. And mortgages used to be the 3 C's of mortgages. Today it's the 4 C's. Okay. Credit, collateral, capacity, and compliance. Let's kind of talk. Edyn, you want to take any of these real quick, or you're on mute?
Hate that. Okay, so basically we have credit, right? And we know that that's usually our biggest one. That's the one I see oftentimes that people are most worried about. They don't want you to pull their credit. It might hurt their credit. We're not worried about hurting your credit when we pull their credit. So make sure your clients understand if you can pull your credit 3 or 4 times a year, and you're not going to hurt their score. It's the least of their worries, pulling their credit, but we need to know what's going on. And oftentimes it's good to, if they're looking to buy a house in 3 months, we want to pull their credit now. We want to see if there's anything on there that's going to cause problems. So we have plenty of time to fix it. Collateral, they've got to have something, right? They've got to have some money down. Even with Utah Housing right now, we can't get seller financing or seller
concession
to pay any of our closing costs. And so it used to be you could get into a Utah Housing without any money down, but for the most part, even like VA is no money down, but you got to pay closing costs. They've got to have something to bring to the table most of the time. Their capacity, are they going to be able to pay this loan? We're looking at, when James is talking about, the variable income is like the worst. We hate variable income because it's typically they say, wait, we work full time. We're 39 hours a week, 40 hours a week. It's full time. It's not a big deal. But I've had deals killed by 15 minutes. Like they clocked in late for lunch, and then they're variable, and we have to, cut income. So we have to figure out something else, and we have to be sure that they understand when they're hourly that they have to show that 40 hours. Don't clock in late for lunch don't take unpaid vacations. And so preparing our clients is good, but they have to be able to repay that loan. And then compliance, we have to be in compliance with the laws and the rules and all that kind of stuff with the loans that we're doing, and make sure that we follow all the rules. So anything you want to add to that, James?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's everybody hop on your chat box. What is the minimum credit score needed to get a loan? What do you guys think? Go ahead and pop that in, and let's see what you come up with. 580, 680, 640, 640, 620, 550, 580, 640. Good. 720, 620, 620. Good. Depends on the loan. Yep, Melvin. I was in a class, an attorney was teaching at one time, and he said, I found if you always say it depends, you're usually going to be right. Okay. Depends on the loan. Okay, very good. So let's go through that. Conventional, pretty standard across the board, 620 minimum credit score. If you're going into like a USDA loan, pretty much a 640 across the board. VA kind of depends on the lender, typically around 620 or so. Now, where the confusion comes in is FHA. FHA will accept loans down to really into the 500s. Problem with that is most lenders won't. Most lenders have a minimum like around a 620, 640. Some will go lower with extenuating circumstances. I've never been able to get someone approved below a 600. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I've done thousands of deals. It's just, there's always something that will keep them from it. So, okay, very good. Okay, so let's talk. What do you think is the minimum score needed to get the best interest rate? Okay, so what do you think that score is? The minimum score needed on the top end to get the best interest rate. Go ahead and pop in the chat. 720, 700, 720, 740. Okay, you guys are spot on. Your conventional loans require a 740 or higher to get the best rate. Your government loans require a 620. So everybody's answering 720 and 740, and you're both right. So again, if you're going conventional, 740 and higher. If you're going FHA, VA, 720. Okay, very good. Can someone get a loan with no credit? Any Dave Ramseyites here? Okay, Melody says no, thank you. So if you listen to Dave Ramsey, he's going to tell you you don't need credit. Now, I don't know who he's talking about or what lenders, but yeah, find your local loan shark. Thanks, Adrian. So if you're going Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, you need a credit score. So so we have to get credit. So it just happens. So be aware of that. Edyn mentioned we'd like to pull credit 3 months in advance. That's 100% correct. You have someone that's, hey, I'm thinking about buying a home the first of the year. We'd love to meet with them now and pull their credit and make sure, because then we have time. If there's any issues, we can start working on some credit repair, get some things paid off or corrected, versus whenever they come to us and we don't have any time to get anything fixed and they've got problems. Okay. Leanne, you repeat that, please. 720 for yes. So to get the best interest rate, you need a 740 credit score with conventional, and you need a 720 with government loans, your FHA and VA. Very good. Okay. As Edyn mentioned, your collateral is your down payment, and we have to verify those funds. We have to, if they're putting 5% down, 20% down, whatever, we have to verify that that money is coming from them or from an acceptable source. As Edyn mentioned, capacity is debt to income, ability to repay. So everything we do is based off of gross income. And what do you think their maximum debt to income ratio can be to be able to buy a home? Meaning you take their house payment and any monthly debts. Okay, I got 30%, and you divide it by their gross monthly income, 33. Good. What else? What other numbers? It's actually higher than that. 50, 55. Okay. Caden got 55. So your conventional loans are typically 45%. So we can help someone buy up to really 45%. Sometimes we can go a little bit higher if they've got good credit and a good down payment. Your FHA loans will actually let us go up to 50 or 55%, which is insane. Okay. Basically, we're letting someone have over half their gross income go toward debt. One of the things I tell people is, I'll ask people, hey, how much do you feel comfortable paying each month? What's your price range? And then they'll always ask, well, you tell me, James. And then my response is, I can actually get you approved for higher than you really should be paying for. So that's something about that. All right, let's keep talking here. And then compliance. Compliance is a booger here, guys. We have to be so careful. Our documents have to go out in a certain amount of time. Closing disclosure has to be signed 3 business days before. I had a client yesterday, Thursday, that wanted to close on Monday, and I'm like, hey, buddy, you've got to sign this before midnight tonight or we're not closing on Monday. So, I mean, that's how particular we have to be in this industry. So very good. Does anybody have any questions on those 4 C's before we move into the next section? Okay, let's talk about home types that we lend on. Okay, so what this class is slanted toward residential lending. So we're not really talking about commercial lending, farm lending, any of that stuff. So first of all, we can lend, okay, sorry, Ariel had a question. Are closing disclosure deadlines the same for manufactured homes? Yes, they are. They're going to be the exact same. Great question there. So, yep, love it. Okay. Any homes that are in residential areas such as single family condos, townhomes, up to 4 units, so duplex, triplex, and fourplex. We can do manufactured, built after 1978, and then residential homes 4 units and under. Okay. If a home is in a commercial zone, but as long as it's grandfathered in, meaning that the city will allow it to be rebuilt, should it be destroyed by fire, we can also lend on those homes. Okay. Residential lenders do not lend on commercial properties. They do not lend on farms. And sometimes it gets a little tricky because we'll have a home on a farm. If it's clearly farm and the property is for farming purposes, they have to get a farm loan and not a residential loan. Land lots are a no-no. They have to really go to a bank or credit union. Anything over 4 units, that's going to be considered commercial, a 5-plex, 8-plex, 12-plex. Okay, manufactured homes before 1976, and then also mobile homes, we don't lend on. And the reason for that is a mobile home is not considered real property, okay? They have to be, attached, permanently fixed to the property. Otherwise, we cannot lend on them. It's just like buying an RV is really what it is. So, and they cost about as much as RVs nowadays, okay?
James, we have a question. How about container homes?
I'm not, are those? Yeah, those are going to be tough right now. Those are new. The Fannie and Freddie really aren't going to lend to those at this point. The same thing with the tiny homes. They have to be a minimum square footage or they're not going to get traditional residential financing. So good question there. Okay. What about a mobile home on a foundation? That's a really good question. If it's a mobile home, even though it's on a foundation, we're probably not going to lend on it. It's going to have to be at least a manufactured home and stuff like that, meet certain requirements. Yes, we'll send out slides to everybody. Even at the end, we'll send these slides to everybody. So happy to do that. Okay, let's talk about manufactured versus modular homes. All right. I get asked this question. I'll have an agent, they'll call me up and they'll say, hey, can you lend on modular homes? Now, I've been doing this long enough. I know that usually that means manufactured, okay? In the real estate world, manufactured and modular mean the exact same thing. In the lending world, they are 2 totally separate things, okay? Now, both are built in a factory. Both are, trucked on those big trucks and to the site and then put together on site. Modular homes are built to a higher quality, higher specifications, okay? If it's listed as a modular home, it's just like a regular stick-built home. We have no problems with it. If it's manufactured, then it's going to be a different category. We have to get an engineering cert. We have to get plates, make sure it's all, certified when it was built, all that stuff. So be careful when you ask your lender, hey, can you do modular? Make sure you know if you're talking modular or manufactured. How to tell, look at the county records. A lot of times that'll tell you if it's manufactured or modular. If it has steel beams underneath, that's a dead giveaway for a manufactured home and not a modular. Usually somewhere either under a kitchen sink or in a bathroom sink, there's paperwork that, that should be stapled there from the original manufacturer. And that'll tell you what we're dealing with there. And so any questions on modular versus manufactured? Okay. All right. And then I kind of brought up, homes that now reside in commercial zones. Those are considered illegal or non-conforming, but legal type thing. Again, we need to get either a rebuild letter or get proof from the city that that home can be rebuilt if that home is now zoned in a commercial zone. Underwriter will look at that a little bit carefully. They're going to look and see if this person is self-employed. Are they buying this home really for a business? Because as a residential lender, again, they do not lend. Okay, what are the minimum square foot requirements for traditional residential lending? That is the $1 million question. Ariel, you or Adrian, you get a prize for today. You've stumped the teacher because I don't know that number. I have in my head it's like 500, but I don't know that one for sure. So, Edyn, if you wanted to research that one and let everybody know, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I'm not quite sure on that one. Okay, great. Any other questions? Any other stump the teacher questions out there? Okay. Very good. Let's keep moving forward. Okay. Another thing when it comes to lending is condos and townhomes. Someone unmute yourself and tell us the difference between a condo and a townhome.
A condo, you only own the airspace. A townhome, you still own the property or the land.
Okay, very good. Awesome. Okay, very good. Okay, so obviously a condo, anytime they're stacked on top of each other, 100% of the time, those are going to be condos. Okay. But you can have homes that are side by side, and those can be condos or townhomes. What's the difference? What makes one a condo? What makes the other one a townhome?
Can answer that. This is Jennifer Luce. Condo, the difference between a condo and a townhome is not how it's built. A condo is a zoning issue.
Yep.
A townhome is a style of home. You can
Yep.
actually live in a townhome that's zoned as a condo.
Yes. Yep. Okay, very good. Thank you. And then Brett Bushman, good job. What the county says. Okay. So it's how the developer or the builder records it. So if you're helping a builder or a developer, now if the homes are going to be on top of each other, those are condos 100% of the way. Lending, guys, is so much easier on townhomes than on condos. So if you're a developer is like, hey, should we write condo in here? Should we write townhomes? You're going to tell them what? Townhouses. Okay. It's night and day difference. So much easier with townhomes. Okay. Very good. Edyn, do you want to bring that up, what you just typed in?
Yeah, so it says conventional Fannie Mae doesn't have any rules as far as the minimum square footage requirement, but FHA, except for manufactured homes. So FHA was a minimum of 400 for manufactured homes and conventional 600.
Awesome. I just learned something today. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Okay, when it comes to condos, we have to have lender approval on those. Okay. So if it's an FHA loan, how do we find out if that is FHA approvable or not? Anybody want to unmute yourself and let me know or type in the chat?
Sometimes it says in the listing.
Yes. And I've seen many listings where it says FHA approved, but it hasn't been FHA approved for years.
There we go.
Or it's expired sometimes, James. I have one right now where they're just extending, hoping that they'll get the FHA approval again.
Yes, very good. I had there was a buyer once that they were trying to get out of the contract. They were past deadlines, but they were using, because the listing agent put in there that FHA approval on the MLS listing, that's what they were using to get out, even though they were beyond the deadline. So be careful of that. So let's see here. Does the difficulty behind lending on condos have something to do with not actually owning any land? Adrian, that's a really good question. It's just in the mortgage business, there's no common sense. It's all based on guidelines. And if that property says condo, then we've got to go do what's called a condo search. And what we're looking for is, number one, if for like FHA and like conventional, if you're buying investor, They don't want more than 50% of the units to be investor products. We don't want more than 15% of the units to be in arrears on the HOA. They want to make sure the HOA budget, make sure they're liquid, make sure they've got budget for repairs, stuff like that. They want to make sure that there's no litigation going on. So this is stuff we don't even deal with single family homes, PUDs, PRDs, but we have to deal with this with condos. Okay. Erin Havens, we asked our lender. Yes. If you guys ever have any questions, just shoot Edyn a quick text or an email. All she needs to know are two things. She needs to know the condo name, the project name, and the city. Sometimes people will send us the address and then we got to go research and find out what those are, but that's how we'll search. And I'll go that to in a second. And then Sherry, you said I go to a website. Absolutely. So let's go to this really quick. So this here is FHA's site where we check. And let's just pull up, let's go into Utah. Okay. I'm going to go into Utah really quick. And let's just pull up Pleasant Grove. This is how easy it is to look up a condo, if it's approved or not. I'm going to hit send. Okay. And then they list all the condo projects. So if we look here at Bella Monet, the first one, see what just happened here. We look to the far right, expiration 7/25. So they just expired 3 months ago. They have not renewed yet. Cambria condos, they're good till the 2024. Colony Square expired. And you see these back in 2011. This is when FHA changed their rules. And that's why a lot of these are at the 2011. They've never updated those. Okay. Sherry, yes. I never trust the listing. I always check this website. Yes. Okay. You have any questions on that? If it's VA, just send us the condo complex name, the city. We can look that up for you and let you know. Okay.
James, can you talk a little bit about how that differs with conventional?
Yeah, absolutely.
We always talk about, FHA and VA and approval, but we're doing a lot of conventional loans.
Yes. And so the nice thing, conventional is going to be your most lenient when it comes to condos. So I mentioned FHA doesn't allow more than half the units to be investor owned. If you're buying a home as a primary residence or a secondary home, it doesn't matter what percent of investors there are. We run into this a lot in Provo because there's so many investor condos out there. So it's almost impossible to get an FHA loan on those because of that rule right there. And then also keep in mind that the FHA approvals run for 2 years and sometimes some things can change. So we will still get a condo cert in the meantime, and just to make sure nothing's changed and they're still good. So even though this website says it's good, sometimes that project can become ineligible. I have a client right now, when a condo does not meet guidelines, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines.
Well, you get a toy.
It's called non-warrantable, okay? And so your Fannie and Freddie aren't going to lend on it. But I've got 2 going on right now that we have a specialty product. The rate is higher, unfortunately, but they're taking the clients because, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac won't. So just because someone's going conventional, it doesn't fit regular guidelines, we have options for them to still buy that condo if needed. So heads up on that. Okay. All right.
James, we might want to do a word.
A word? We're just flying along. So our first word for today is condo. First word for today is condo. Everybody, if you're not paying attention right now, now's the time to write down number 1 and write down condo. Okay. Sharon asked a really good question. Who's verifying the owner occupancy? That's through the condo cert. We will send it. Now, those condo guys, they're really smart people. And so they, instead of us going straight to the HOA, they have us go to these management companies, and we pay anywhere from $50 to $250 for this document. So, and unfortunately, sometimes it's passed on to the client. So, but that's how we find out what percent are owner occupied, what percent are investor. So
I have a question. This might be more asking other agents, I'm not sure, but I had that come up with a buyer and we were unable, we had to, luckily it came up fast because we had a great mortgage person, but we had to get out of the contract because they couldn't rent it out. So in a case like that, as a best practice, as a seller's agent, would you want to look into that first and put that in the notes and say, hey, by the way, you can't, this is not an investment property?
Melody, that's a really good comment you just brought up. I hope everybody's listening to that. There's condos out there that are working for their FHA approval, and they know they can't go over a certain limit of investors or they lose their FHA approval. So what they'll do is they'll put into the guidelines into their CC&Rs that, hey, to rent out another property, you have to go on this waiting list or whatever, or they'll just say, hey, nobody new can rent it out. So absolutely that needs to be disclosed. But I'm also going to tell you that, a lot of agents don't know this and don't disclose it. So as a buyer's agent, if your client is buying a condo and they're going to rent it out, be checking to make sure they're not going to have any problems. The last thing you want, guys, is you close on the deal and the client goes to put a tenant in and they're told they can't. You're going to be their first phone call, and it's not going to be a pleasant phone call. So Melody, that was a great comment. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thanks.
So, yeah, awesome. Okay, Denise, yes, please. As someone who reps investors, that'd be great to know. Yes, that would be great. That would be great for listing agents to put on there. Okay. All right, let's talk about, I actually went into Utah County's website. Now, those that work in Salt Lake or whatever, the homes in Salt Lake, that'll be a different, but this will give you kind of an idea. This is where we look to see if it's a condo or not. If it says planned unit development in their legal description or townhomes, that typically is going to mean it's a townhome. Okay. Now, I've had a few cases where it'll say townhomes, and then we go into the appraisal information and it'll say condo. So be careful of that. Fortunately, this one says townhouse. Okay. Here's another one. And if you look at the legal description again, see where it says condominiums. So if anybody's here wondering, how do I know if it's a condominium or not? You look up the legal description. Okay. Or you also can look at the appraisal information and it'll say it on their condo, 3 or less stories. Okay. Any questions or comments at this point? Okay. Let's jump to the next section here. And that is, we're going to talk about kind of the process. So your client, someone wants to buy a house. Let's kind of talk about how that works and where that goes. Okay. So first of all, they want to buy a home. And of course, their first phone call is always to the realtor. Okay. And the realtor, of course, will say, have you been pre-approved yet? Okay. And then they're going to say, hey, go talk to my loan officer, whether you give 1, 2, or 3 names out. Okay. And then what we do is our job as the lender is to really speak with the client. Okay. We're going to ask certain questions. We're going to fill out an online application. The client's going to give us the things that we need. And then we're going to look at credit, income, down payment, and then calculate kind of a maximum qualification. The questions that we're going to ask, so you send me or Edyn the client, the first question I'm going to ask is, where are you looking to buy? Anybody want to tell me why? Either unmute or put in the comments, why am I asking where are they looking to buy? Why is that important? Taxes? Okay. Nope, not really. But I mean, that's important to know because certain areas are more on taxes. Good. Okay. Different towns have different lending. Yes, but it's actually counties. There's different lending limits per county. Same thing with FHA. Really good answers. Yep. Very good. Yep. County limit. It also tells me what kind of loan programs I'm going to look at. So for instance, if they're looking in a rural area, I know I'm going to look at USDA. If they're looking like in Salt Lake City, I know USDA is not available, that kind of stuff. Okay. Next question I want to ask, what's their time frame? I want to know where they're at. Are they looking to buy right away? Are they 6 months down? Whatever, get a good idea. I always ask this question. It just blows my mind, 20 years doing this. What's your budget? Okay. How much do you feel you can comfortably afford for a mortgage payment? What would you guys guess the percentage of people that can answer this are? People want to buy a house. They're buying the biggest house of their, biggest investment of their lives. And what percent can say, hey, I'm comfortable up to this payment? Just give me go ahead and pop that in the chat really quick. 5% good, yeah. Yeah, it's below 50%. It's just, it's insane, the people. So I want to kind of get an idea of what they're comfortable with, because a lot of times when I'm talking with my agents, I'm going to tell them, hey, they qualify up to 500,000, but they want a payment at 450,000. So write this down. It's really good to know both of these numbers. Okay, what's the client comfortable with? What can they afford? Now, the reason for this is, I tell you, the client can qualify up to 500,000, but they comfortably can afford 400,000. Okay, what's going to happen if you go get them a home for 475,000? Okay, sometimes you can have a deal where, okay, you go, you spend evenings, weekends, you're playing tour guide, you finally get them a home under contract on your 10th offer, and then they come to me and I work up the payment, I show them taxes and insurance, and they're like, holy cow, wait a second, that payment's too high, now all your work is gone. So I like to give them both those numbers, what they qualify for and what they want to qualify, they should qualify for. And then I like to give them a table that really shows all their payments, from 400,000 to 500,000 in increments of 10,000. Okay. So they know what they're getting into before you go start taking them out, because you don't want the deal killed because, wait a second, that payment's too high. Anybody have any experience with this? Know what I'm talking about?
Well, having that payment schedule up front is super helpful, right? Because then for them, for the agent as well as the buyer, because then you're not going back and forth as much.
Yep. Awesome. And one of the next questions is, what monthly mortgage payment do you want to, sorry, I already talked about that. How much will you have for a down payment? And where is it coming from? We got to know that. Again, that's going to tell me what loan program we're going. Are we going for 0 down, low down, 20% down? I need to know right away if there's any bankruptcies, foreclosures. Has anyone here had a client get denied because the loan officer didn't check into any bankruptcies or foreclosures? Okay, anybody that's done business long enough, if you don't control it, Sherry says yes. Yep. There's no excuse for not knowing that, unless of course it's hidden and long time ago, something like that. Okay, I want to know if they're a military veteran. Why is that? Sorry, when I ask a question, I don't move on until I get an answer.
Or VA.
VA, perfect. Yep, we're looking to see if they're a veteran, able for that. Okay. And I want to make sure we put them into the best program. Okay. And so the things that clients need to know is, which loan program is best for me. So let's go through those really quick. I got a slide coming up, but let's just list really quick. What are the different loan programs out there?
30-year fixed.
Okay. Yes. And I'm talking more conventional. I'll get it started. What else?
Oh, okay.
Government, yep, good job. Very good. There we go. Yeah, we got some answers there. Yep, conventional. You got 5 loan programs. You have conventional, FHA, USDA, VA, and in Utah, we have what's called Utah Housing, which is an extension of FHA. Which is the best loan program out there? Depends on the client. Depends. Good. The one that best meets your needs. Okay, very good. Okay, you're a listing agent. You're accepting offers. You have multiple offers. Okay. Michelle or Michael said VA. Good. Okay. Melody said, okay, you're a listing agent. Which one do you want? Conventional, right? If you talk to most listing agents, they're going to want to see conventional. Why do listing agents not want to see FHA? Somebody unmute yourselves and let me know your thoughts on that. Appraisal issues? Go ahead, sorry.
Repairs.
Repairs, yep. FHA is a little bit more stringent. Yep. Amy, perfect. Okay. FHA is actually easier to qualify. I've had some clients that will start out with conventional. They go rack up some credit card debt or something. And now my debt to income ratio is too high for conventional, but it's much more lenient when it comes to FHA. Okay. What's my credit score? Guys, I started in this business 20 years ago. The guy I started with was a crook, okay? He would tell clients, hey, who had like a 720 credit score, he would tell them your credit score is a 680, but guess what? You can still get the same rate, but you got to pay an extra discount point to get it. And so there's some good things that have happened with the regulations. So nowadays, we have to give the client a disclosure but we don't give it to them until we've started the loan process. And so a client really should know what their score is. Now, we talked about what the minimum score is. We talked about what the minimum score needed to get the best rate is. But someone tell me, where would you say excellent credit is? What scores would you say are good? What would you say are fair? And what would you say are poor? Somebody, some brave soul, tell me how you would classify those. Okay. 800 plus is excellent. Good. Good. 700, 800. Okay. 740, excellent. Good. Okay. Very good. No,
Does
I agree.
anybody know how you get up to the 800 credit scores? How do people get an 800 credit score?
Have like $10 on a recurring credit card they pay off.
That's what we think.
I have no idea.
Walk on water, sell a kidney.
It's interesting. You have to, like, the main things are the length of credit. So if you have credit cards that have been open for a really long time, you don't have late payments, that's what's gonna get you up to that 800 score. And then you don't want to have any maxed out credit cards. It's not that you can have a zero balance, but you don't want those to close, so you need to use them. And anyway, it's just interesting. You have to keep these good lines of credit open for a long period of time and keep your balances under 30%. And eventually it will build to an 800 credit score. So that's how people get 800 credit scores.
I love it. Guys, it's time to give the second key word for today. And the second key word is credit. So everybody, not paying attention, grab your pen and write down number 2, credits. All right, let me give you a little secret. So one of the biggest determinations of credit scores are your credit card debt. It's your credit card debt, your limit to balance ratio, your balance to limit ratio. If your credit cards are maxed out, I've seen scores drop as much as 100 points. And so a little secret. So let's say someone has a $2,000 limit on their credit card and every month they pay it off. But every month they charge about $1,700, $1,800, $1,900 every month. Okay, so if they wait for the billing cycle to end, and then they've got that grace period of 30 days or whatever, their credit report is showing a maxed out credit card. So someone that's looking to buy a home or a car and wants to improve their credit scores, I recommend paying that off 3 days before your credit cycle ends. And then going in again and quickly paying off the rest, the remaining, so you don't accrue any interest. Because what this will do is, so for instance, one of my credit cards has about a $5,000 balance, typically what I charge, pay it off every month. And so when I was preparing to get a loan, this is what I did is I went and paid it off. And so it showed like a $300 balance now instead of a $5,000 balance. So just a little way to trick the system if you want. So yes, pay your cards every 2 weeks. Is that Robert or Ellen today? Oh, Robert. Okay, very good. Gotcha. Okay, very good. Awesome. Sounds good. Okay, anything you want to add to that, Edyn, or anybody else?
Credit isn't as, I just don't want people to be as scared of credit. I feel like people are so scared of credit. And credit just, it is what it is. And we can take care of a lot of things. Sometimes when I see lower credit scores, all it is high balances on their credit cards. And they're like, well, we pay them off every month, like you're saying. Okay, well, just, let's get an updated statement. We can do a credit supplement sometimes, or, there's lots of things you can do with credit. Sometimes we can't, and we have to send people to credit repair. But we have a really good company that can help with credit repair. And so let's just not be so scared of credit. It just is what it is, and we can take care of it. Blair, do you have a question?
Yeah. Thanks, Edyn. I do have a question. When you were just talking about how like you have your balances to like your like credit limit ratio, right? You said it shouldn't be like, as far as your balance to your credit limit, it shouldn't be above a certain percentage before you
Yeah.
pay it off. Is that again? What was
Well,
it?
not before you pay it off, but when it reports to the bureau, you want it to be under 30%. So like James was saying, like if you want to show a zero balance so that you don't have to count any payments against you when you're trying to get a loan, which is helpful to people when they're trying to qualify for something, then they have less debt. You would have to call the bureau or call your credit card company, ask them when they report to the bureaus, and then pay off your balance 3 days before that. So then when they report, there's no balance on there.
Oh, okay. I'm saying you're, I get you. So balances that you're carrying forward to the next month that you have to pay off. Is that what you're saying?
Well, even when you do pay them off every month,
Oh,
when it reports to the bureau, sometimes there's still a balance because they don't report the same, they don't like report exactly after you pay your payment. And so it'll still show a balance, even if you pay them off and you don't ever get charged interest, it'll still show a balance to the credit companies or to the bureaus. And so
Okay.
you have to find out when they report, pay it off 3 days before that to be able to show zero balance when the credit is pulled.
oh, I see. Okay.
So it doesn't, from a credit point of view, credit scores, it doesn't matter if they carry balances or they pay it off every month. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see that.
Oh,
All that matters is what is that balance and what's that balance to the limit ratio when
Right.
they report that one time a month. So
Okay.
that's a little secret.
I see.
We've had a couple people ask what the first keyword is. We're going to give one freebie. The first word was condo. First word was condo. So we're going to give everybody one freebie on that one. Okay, and Sherry mentioned people like to charge everything for points and forget that paying them off has to be done at a certain time. Great point there. Yep. I'm one of those guys. I'm putting everything on my card. You know, I get a $500 check every 3 to 4 months. So I like those points. So, okay, very good. Let's keep going here. You know, clients they need to have an idea how much they need to put down, and not just down payments. They need closing costs as well. Has anyone gotten the seller to pay closing costs recently? Raise your hands. You guys are laughing, right? It's you know, 2-3 years ago, we used to always put in there, you know, seller pay 3% closing costs. We always got it. We actually do get closing costs once in a while now, but yeah, a lot of times if you're submitting an offer asking for closing costs, you're going to kind of go to the last of the line. It's kind of tough there.
Robert's saying yes, he did, and Quinn's saying he recently did. So
Yeah.
maybe it's coming back a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely not like it used to be, but how many people would agree the market's changing? It's not the feeding frenzy it was, you know, 3 months ago. Homes are sitting for a few days nowadays. So, yeah, good.
Definitely. I had one recently. We just went under contract, but they negotiated for a week and a half and didn't have any other offers, which is unheard of, right? But
Yeah. No,
anyway, just interesting.
last week I had three buyers go out. They all put one offer in each and they all got the home accepted. And that, you know, 3 months ago, that was not happening. So, but yeah, Adrian, I agree 100%. It's softening, but still a relatively strong seller's market. So, yep, 100% agree with that. Okay. So what is the minimum down required for a loan? Depends on the loan. Yep.
We love our depends answer.
Everybody that wrote depend, you get a star for being correctly right. Exactly right. Okay. Let's run through that really quick. Conventional, 3% down is your minimum. As long as you fit one of two categories, either you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're going with a home ready or a home possible program, meaning your income is not over 80% of the area median income, which is roughly 60 to 70,000 currently. Okay. If you're not a first-time home buyer or you make over the 60 to 70,000, conventional requires a minimum down payment of 5%. FHA, everybody got was a 3.5% minimum down. VA is a minimum down of what? Everybody should know this, right? 0. VA is 0 down. USTA is 0 down. USTA is also, sorry, Utah Housing is also 0 down.
James, can we clarify those 0 down? I find that a lot of times I have agents who don't totally understand that like VA is 0 down payment, but we still have closing costs.
Yep.
Or, you know, USD is 0 down, but we still have closing costs. So Utah housing is 0 down, but without a seller paid closing costs, you're usually $2,000 to $3,000.
Yep. So we do have the option, what's called premium pricing, where we can bump the rate and pay the closing costs for the client. That's usually going to add 3/8 to 0.5% to their rate. So you can always ask the seller to pay those closing costs for them. They can get gifts. Utah housing will cover most of the closing costs, but usually we'll still need another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, depending on the loan size for those. So
And you can't premium price for Utah housing.
that is correct.
So, but you can for VA and USDA.
Yep, you got it. Okay. And I've done VA loans where we're actually able to get them their earnest money back because we've raised the rate and we're paying the closing costs through the rate and truly getting with no money out of pocket. But sometimes they do need to. So, yeah, good. Any questions or thoughts at this point? Let's talk about locking in the interest rates. Okay, so interest rates are fascinating. As everybody knows, they're like gas prices, they're like stock prices. They change with the market. They can change once a day. They can go a week or two without changing. They can change 3 times in a day. My overall nightmare of a story was I call up a client. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I can get you this interest rate. He's like, that's great. I'll be in at 2 o'clock. Let's go fill out the paperwork. And there was some crazy corrections that day. Rates rose 0.5%. Now that's very abnormal. That happens extremely rare, but they can change from time to time. If someone is buying a home, when can we lock in their rates?
Is it not when they express the intent to proceed or to issue an estimate?
Yep, very good. Sherry and Blair are correct. Both of them are correct. We cannot lock someone in until the offer is accepted and the client has given us the go ahead. I've had clients that they'll call me up and say, hey, I hear rates are moving in and they're out looking for homes. Can you lock me in? The answer to that is no, I can't lock them in until they have a home because the lock has to go with a specific property. Also, we lock in on certain periods of time. We can lock in on a 15-day, a 30-day, 45-day, 60-day, 90-day. We could even lock on a 180-day lock, okay? Now, why would we not want to just lock everybody in? Rates are going to go up. Why don't we just lock everybody in on a 6-month lock? Rates may go down. Okay, good. Rates could change, but the bigger reason is, yes, Kate, it costs money. The longer out we lock for, the worse the rate. So for instance, today on a 30-day lock, the rate would be 3.125. But if we lock on a 60-day, it's going to be 3.25. Or we have to charge extra origination fee or something like that. It's more pricey the longer out we lock for. Okay. Now, what happens if we lock a client in and say for 30 days and then the seller decides to extend or whatever and won't be ready to close, or the the buyer's agent lender is not ready to close, and we get to the end of the lock period and we're not closing time? What do we do in that situation?
Or new builds right now, James.
Yep, or new builds.
That's a big issue. That's a big issue right now.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so yeah, we've got some answers coming over here. Okay. From Michael, can they lock with more than one property? As long as they're buying more than one property, yes. It costs us money to lock in. So we're not interested in just locking to lock. But if they're buying more than one property, if we lock them on a property and then they end up backing out and buying another one, we just cancel that lock and go with a new one. That's not a problem. We deal with that all the time. Adrian says, could you go into more detail as to why it's expensive for the lender to lock? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so when we lock in a loan, we are ensuring that we are guaranteeing the client that rate. So let's say we lock somebody in today at 3.125, okay? They're not gonna close for 30 days or 45 days. The problem is the market can go worse, it can go better, it can stay the same. We have to protect in case it goes worse, because we still have to. Now, we're not going to deliver this loan to the secondary market for 45 days. And in 45 days from now, rates could be 3.75%. or something like that. And so it's just really simple. The longer out we lock, that's the greater risk that rates could go up and be higher. So that's why it's priced in. Does that make sense? Yep, very good. And then Sherry, yes, pay to extend. So what I'll normally do, I run into this a lot with new builds. I mean, I always try to have 2 weeks extra on the lock. I'm not going to lock in until they give me a date that says we will be done by this date. And I still want 2 weeks after, because so many times they go after. But usually I'll give my client, me as a lender, I'll give the client really the first 7 days extra for free. But if it goes beyond that, then I have to get some money from the client, unfortunately. And it gets expensive. It's about $20 per 100,000 per day. So if you have a $400,000 loan, $20 per 100,000, that's $80 per day to extend. And the worst thing is that's calendar days. So if we go a weekend, we can get pricey really fast on extension. So we have to be really careful on those. So, what do we do if rates go up and we lock? Is there any worries for the client? The answer is what? No, we've locked in, we protected them as long as, we fund the loan before that lock expires. What happens if rates go down and we've locked somebody in? The typical answer I hear is what? Just go relock them. Okay, it's not quite that easy. If you're a broker and you want to pull a lock, you can do that, but you run risks of losing credibility with your lenders. With us, we have a free one-time rate renegotiation policy, which means if rates drop an eighth or a quarter point, we've locked somebody in, there's nothing we can do. But if they're going to drop like 3/8, and usually we can go in and get a free rate reduction down to that with no cost. So that's kind of how we work it here at Security Home Mortgage. Okay.
That's good to know that if it goes down by an eighth to a quarter, that it's you can, like what you're saying, yeah.
No, we can't do anything.
Yeah, like if it's in the eight, between the eighth and the quarter, you wouldn't be able to. But if it's a quarter and beyond, then yeah, okay, that's cool. That's good.
3/8 and beyond, we can't. I'll have clients that we've locked them in, and then 3 days later they call me up and they're like, "Hey, I just saw rates dropped an eighth. I can't really do anything with that."
Right.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool.
yeah. But they see that, hey, it's dropped quite a bit, then yeah, we can go renegotiate. Any questions or thoughts on that? Okay. Yeah, Sharon, try for an extension. How long do you give for dropping? We need to have everything finalized really a week before closing, because it's got to go through underwriting, CD, all that stuff. I had a client call me the day of. She was on the way to title, had to close that day, and she's like, "Hey, can I get a lower rate?" I'm like, "Even if rates were lower, we're already done. Paperwork's all the way done. So sorry." So heads up on that. Okay, discussion on locking. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, let's talk about, you are a listing agent. You've got a home. It's a highly desirable home, which is basically any home nowadays. And you've got multiple offers. You are one of the agents that call the lender. What are the questions you're going to ask?
Can you say that one more time?
Okay, you're the listing agent. You've got multiple offers, and you've got 3 or 4 that you really like. So you're going to start calling the lender for each buyer. What are the questions you're going to ask that buyer or that buyer's lender?
What's the best rates you got available?
You're the listing agent. You don't care about rates.
Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question. Okay.
Yep. Okay, I love this. Okay, good. Okay, we got some good questions here. Okay, have they given supporting documents to you yet? This is a great question. Now, specifically, what documents do we want to make sure we have? We want to make sure we have pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns if they're needed, right? Okay. Let's go back to the story I told at the very first. Okay. If we just go off of what the client tells us they make, That's not always going to be what the lender or the underwriter lets us use. So we need to make sure we have those documentations. Okay, good. Very good. Amy Jensen, can you tell me about this buyer? Okay, that's a good question there. Okay. As a lender, what are we always going to say with that question?
What would you like to know?
Yeah. Or actually, what are lenders are always going to say? What they're the best. They're awesome. You know, I've got all their stuff, right? So as a listing agent, you want to go a little bit deeper. Sharon, yes, thank you. How soon can you close? Be realistic about it. I had a deal once. We can close loans as little as 10 days. Okay. And so I had an agent call me up and he's like, can you close this loan as little as in 10 business days, 2 weeks? I'm like, yeah, we have that capacity. He's like, oh, good. I'll get that client over. And I'm like, wait a second. Tell me a little bit about what's going on here. Well, it turns out the client is self-employed. It's going to be a condo. He's transferring money from some other source. He's going to be out of town part of this time. And I'm like, wait a second. That's not a 2-week close. We can close in 2 weeks if everything's lined up and ready to go. But if we're having to get stuff, okay, very good. Denise, I asked number one to confirm the pre-approval. How well do they know the client? I love that question. Pay stubs, perfect. Tax returns, good. Now, we don't need tax returns unless they're self-employed or they work for family. So W-2s and pay stubs are usually sufficient.
James, it's good to note that W-2s are different than tax returns because sometimes I'll have people send me their tax returns when I ask for W-2s. And you can go into the state part of the tax returns and see how much is on their W-2s. But to close a loan, we actually need the actual W-2s, just so people are aware.
Yeah, because sometimes the tax returns will show income from other jobs that they had that they don't have currently. So that's not enough information. Okay. Adrian, how confident are you in the buyers being able to follow through on the contracts? I love that question. It gives you some ammo. So if their story changes, you can be like, hey, we had this conversation. Okay, Denise, have you pulled credit? A1, absolutely. In this market, if you're working with a lender that's not pulling credit, you're working with the wrong person. Also, make sure that they're pulling all 3 bureaus. Okay. If I'm a listing agent, now, if I ask a lender what their credit score is, as a lender, we can't tell you that. But you can ask, have you pulled credit and are their credit scores sufficient? Okay. Very good. Those with pre-approval, that's good. Have you run DU and verified all documentation requested? Yes. Okay. So in fact, I'm going to give these 3 keywords. This will be third word. The third word, but it's 3 different words. It's actually letters. So number 3, you got to write these down. And okay, the first one is DU. And that stands for desktop underwriter. The second word is LP. Again, this is all for word 3, even though there's 3 words for it. Second one is LP for loan prospector. And then you have AUS, which stands for automated underwriting system. So again, the third keyword is DU for desktop underwriter, LP for loan prospector, and AUS for automated underwriting system. I've had some agents that'll call me up and they're like, hey, we just submitted the offer and the agent's asking for the AUS. Have you run AUS? What does that mean? Or the listing agent's asking, have you run LP or DU? Okay. When we have a client and we go for pre-approval, we get all their documentation, we pull credit, we have a complete loan application, and then we run it on what's called automated underwriting. Okay. DU is Fannie Mae, LP is loan prospector, which is Freddie Mac. Either one is fine. And the cool thing with these is if we enter the information in, we enter their income in, we enter their down payment, we enter their credit in, and it comes out with an approval. As long as all that information is correct, guess what? We have a loan. Okay. We'll be able to fund it as long as, of course, the appraisal comes in good. And as long as title comes back good, they don't quit their job or anything like that. Okay?
Or they don't buy a car or get another loan.
Get new debt and stuff like that. Okay. Edyn, kind of tell about our 10-day close and how that works with how we do the underwriting beforehand. Instead of just a pre-approval, it's a full-on underwrite.
Yeah, this is super awesome. It's starting to really get up and running, and I've used it a number of times and had really good success with it. So typically I will do a regular pre-approval like we're talking about, run my DU, and that's a 21 to 30 day close. And I'll send that over to your client. And then I will talk to you a little bit. Do you think that these people, I've already talked to the client, they're very interested, they're wanting to put in offers. And so let's talk about the 10-day approval. And that takes about a week and a half. We get everything else that we would need, except for, minus basically the property address. So we don't have appraisal and we don't have our PR and title stuff. And we go through underwriting just without a property address. And they do a full underwrite. It comes out with an approval. Then when they go under contract, we can close in 10 business days. And we just need to rush the appraisal and get the titles on a rush, and we can close. So I've closed one where we got the Rep C on Wednesday. We had CD ready on Friday. We just had to wait the full 7 days. We didn't have to do an appraisal because we had a waiver, but still, it's super fast and it helps to compete with our cash offers. And you're not always going to have the sellers aren't always worried about a really fast close, but it helps, especially we can do this on Utah Housing. I have one right now where they're making offers, 10-day close Utah Housing, FHA, and that helps those borrowers have one more feather in their cap when they're trying to go compete against conventional offers. And they've been through underwriting. It's not like, we've just done the pre-approval process. We've been through underwriting, full underwrite. It's done. And so that can make, especially, and I don't know the lenders that you guys have worked with, but for me, I always like to call the listing agent and just explain my 10-day close, because they probably haven't seen it very often, and we can close and we've done it before. And so just I do like to call and make sure. So that's a super important thing to think about when you're choosing your lender, and it can help your borrowers go under contract.
Perfect. Thank you, Edyn. Very good. Also, it helps when you're competing with other offers. You've got a pre-approval letter, and then you've got a fully underwritten client here. It makes for a much stronger offer. Okay.
Sure.
Let's talk about job history for a bit. All right. Job history is, how long does someone need to be on their job to get a loan? What do you guys think? Go ahead and answer or put in the chat. 2 years? Good. 6 months?
It could be a brand new job.
Can it? Are you sure, Melody?
Yeah, I think they just have to have 2 years or 5 years of full-time work history or something like that.
Okay, Melody, you are correct. Okay, very good. So from a lending point of view, we'd like to see someone on their job for 2 years. Okay. Robert put it in the same kind of job. So here's what's interesting. That used to be the case. If they weren't on their job for 2 years, we needed to show 2 years in the same line of work. That's no longer the case. You guys can throw that out. That's old information. We have people all the time. They're working at Wendy's and they go get a job, somewhere else, totally different. It doesn't matter. We can get them a loan just fine. Okay. So let's talk about that really quick. We actually can get someone a loan just before they start their job. For instance, someone comes out of college, just got their degree. They have a job offer. As long as they have a sufficient down payment and show they can make the payments, we can get the loan done up to 30 days before they start their job. Okay. Although we do like to have 1 or 2 pay stubs, we still can, someone's moving here from out of state. I've done some loans this year for nurses moving in from California. We used their job offer letter, and as long as it shows a salary and consistent income, we can work with that. Or sometimes we just wait for that first or second pay stub. Okay, Helen, self-employed people. What about self-employed people? Okay, self-employed people are discriminated. It's a totally night and day difference, okay? The funny thing is if someone's is self-employed for say a year and a half and then they go into a W-2 for 6 months, we're just fine, piece of cake. Someone is W-2'd for a year and a half and then they go become self-employed for 6 months, not a chance, okay? At minimum, the minimum on self-employed is we have to have a full year of tax returns. And that's only if we get a 1-year waiver, meaning they've got really good credit and a really good down payment. We probably can get a 1-year tax waiver, which means I need 1 full year of taxes. That's the minimum. Usually we're going to need 2 years of taxes for self-employed. Okay. So someone can't just become self-employed and then expect to get a loan. Okay.
I have people come a lot with this. It's super frustrating. I'm like, I'm making way more than I was making. I'm in the same industry.
Yeah,
And it is really frustrating to them because they've taken this new job at 1099 and they're making a lot more money and then they can't get a loan.
yeah. I had one client, he made a really good point. It's like, hey, I'm self-employed. I got 50 different clients. If one of them fires me, I still got 49 others paying me. If my employer fires me, I'm done. I'm my income until I find another employer, but that's not how the lending world looks at it. So, okay, Michael Carlin, can they have 2 pay stubs or is it 6 months? We just need 2 pay stubs. We need the most recent month of pay stubs. So they can start a new job. Now, FHA is picky on this. If they had a 6-month gap of work in the last 2 years, they must have been on their current job at least 6 months. Where conventional, as long as I can show a good case, I had a client, she worked for 10 years at her previous job. And then she took the last 8 months off to go be with her boyfriend and travel and stuff. She came back, had just started her job up again. She'd been on it 6 weeks. We got her a loan just fine. So as long as they're good borrowers, they've got good credit, good down payment, and there's job gaps, not too big of a deal. But if they've got lower credit, they've got job gaps, they got barely any money, then that could be a little bit harder. I had one client that came to me and the husband literally had a 2-year work history, but literally 2 or 3 months at a time on a job. I was talking with the wife and then she was like, yeah, he would just get ticked off at his employer and quit and go find another job. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not going to show any job stability. Call me back when can hold a job down for 6 months. And that was my requirement to be able to get him a loan and stuff like that. So, okay, very good. Let's go back here. Blair, for self-employed, if they have 1 year legit income, do their assets as far as brokerage, assets, investments to support reserves? Yeah, we'll need that to show reserves and stuff. Now, we do have bank statement loans. If their taxes don't show enough, we can do some bank statements to show that they've got enough business funds coming in. Okay.
James, I don't feel like I see very often a 1-year waiver when they've just been like, they start a whole new business, like you're saying, and they've only have 1-year tax returns. I very rarely see the 1-year waiver.
You're right. That's why I say it's kind of rare and stuff. But if they've got really good credit and they're putting a large down payment, they're probably going to get it. Okay. If they're putting the minimum down, no, we're probably going to need 2 years on it.
Okay.
Michael Carlin, how is 1 year unemployment hurting buyers? Okay, so that's a good question there. Usually if there's a significant gap like a year, an underwriter really would want to see them back on their job for 6 months. Okay, so that would be kind of the biggest thing you would see. Now, and like I mentioned earlier, if they've got really good credit, really good income, they're going conventional, they've been off for a year, we've got a good reason why, and then they've been back on for 6 weeks or so, we can probably get that to work just fine.
James, can we talk a little bit about variable income? Because I think it's good to kind of have the basics for agents to know about variable income.
Yeah, it's kind of become a big thing with COVID. If they work a job where 1 week they work 20 hours, next they work 30, then they work 15, they have to be on the job for a year. And that's a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac rule. And so that's the one big thing. Like someone comes to me, they're starting a job, they just got a new job. As long as they're 40 hours, they're fine. But if they're just going to work kind of on an on call as needed. I had one, she was a nurse, but her position was she filled in for nurses that were going on maternity leave. There's no way that we could provide, prove, predictable steady income. So we had to wait till she got hired on full time. So that's a really good point there. As Edyn mentioned, sometimes if they've got to be really careful if they're just starting to watch, don't be taking time off, don't be taking unpaid time off, because if we get pay stubs that show 37 hours, 32 hours, that puts them into the variable income category. Now we have to wait a year to be able to count their income. So good point.
Well, and it's interesting too, sometimes when we're already in it, sometimes we can even be under contract and they'll send us a pay stub that's under 40 hours. And so I always go over hourly with people. If we're trying to count 40 hours, I can't see any pay stubs that are under that.
Yep.
Because it can cause some serious issues. So.
Yep. Be careful there. Guys, it's time to give the fourth keyword. It's going to be Edyn with a Y. You have to put the Y in there. If you don't get Edyn with a Y, we're not going to give you credit. Just kidding, but just get close as you can to Edyn. Okay. Everybody got that? Fourth keyword for today is Edyn. Okay. Yes, Adrian, exactly like that. EDYN. You got it. Okay. That sounds good. Next thing I want to talk about is asset information. As a lender, so I bought a car several years ago, put $1,000 down. Did they care where that money came from? No, all they care about is what? They care that the check, clears, right? From a lender point of view, unfortunately, it's not the case. We have to document where that money comes from. We have to make sure that money comes from what's called acceptable sources. And in the lending world, we have what's called sourced and seasoned. Somebody unmute yourselves or pop in the chat. Tell me what sourced and seasoned means.
Seasoned, I believe, is how long it's been in the bank account. So
Yep.
I think 60 days is a magical number.
How long, sorry? 60
60.
days. Yep,
Mm.
yep,
And then source is just where it came from.
yep. Okay, Melody's one.
I don't have to know where it came from.
Yes. Okay, Melody's 100% correct. Okay, when we're documenting the down payment, we have to make sure earnest money, down payment, closing costs, we have to make sure those funds are coming from acceptable sources. Okay, so first of all, seasoned funds are money that's been in someone's checking account or savings account for at least 60 days. If the money is seasoned, we do not care where it comes from. Okay, we don't have to source it or anything. It's been in the account for 60 days. It's good. Okay. Chris Green, Edyn is the fourth word. So, okay. If the money shows up in the last 60 days, then we have to source it. We have to verify the funds come from acceptable sources. What are acceptable sources and what are not acceptable sources? Okay, selling stocks. Yes, absolutely. Family, gifts from family works, loans from family do not work. Angie, I believe there's a difference requirement for funds coming internationally. It's kind of the same actually. For instance, we've had parents gifting funds. We just had to get a gift letter. I've had clients that are pulling money out of the bank from a foreign, and we've had to get the bank statement. The problem is if we just can't document where it's coming from. So if they can provide a bank statement, we have it translated, have the currencies match up, we're okay. So good point there, Angie, on that one. Okay, very good. So really quick, unsecured loans are not eligible funds. Okay, someone goes and gets a payday loan, they get a signature loan, they get that credit card offer in the mail. Hey, borrow $10,000, 0% interest for 18 months. Those are not acceptable funds unless what? They put it in their bank account at least 60 days before, and then we don't care, but then we just need to make sure that we count any of those liabilities, those monthly payments in their debt to income ratio.
James, what if they get a loan from their bank and you can tell it's a loan from their bank, but it's been in their, they've transferred it and it's been in there for 60 days? Because then when we don't care. Okay.
Yep, they can get a signature loan as long as it's 60 days. They can get a loan from a family member as long as it's been there 60 days. We're not asking where it is.
Even if you submit the statement that shows where it came from.
And that's a really good point. We need to have two bank statements showing where the money's already in the account. So if it shows up in the second to last bank statement, we're going to have to source it.
Okay.
And if it comes from somewhere unacceptable, it does not work. Okay. That would be part of their debt to income. Debt to income ratio deals with their monthly payments with their income. This is just their this is your LTV down payment and stuff.
But I think he's saying if you had a signature loan, it would show up on their credit as a payment.
100%. Yep. We just need to make sure. That's a great point. Thanks, Edyn. Thanks, Robert. 100%. Yes. If they take out a loan, we do need to make sure we count that. Now, if you're going conventional, I've had people that will do like a home equity line of credit. They'll have a car that's paid off, they go get a loan. Those are acceptable funds because those are secured loans. Secured loans work, but we have to make sure we put that payment in their debt to income ratio. I've had some cases where we solve one problem by getting a loan because now we have the down payment, but now their debt to income ratio is too high. So be careful of that. So, okay, good point. Any questions there? Okay, let's move on. We've really kind of hit this slide, so I don't know that there's much I want to talk about here. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're getting really near the end. Okay, we've talked about these. Part-time jobs, second jobs. Sometimes I'll have a client, they come to me and they want to qualify for 500,000. They only qualify for 400,000. And so they're like, okay, fine, I'll just go get a second job. Does that work? What do you guys think? No, it doesn't. They need to have 2 years of working 2 jobs side by side to be able to count a second job. Okay. Might be able to get by with as little as 1, but the guidelines state 2 years is recommended. 1 to 2 years can be eligible. Okay. So heads up on that. Okay.
James, can we talk a little bit about bonuses, commissions, overtimes?
It's exactly where I was headed. Perfect. Do you want to take this? You want me to?
Yeah, I was going to talk about it. So
Please.
my thing with bonus, commissions, overtime, they're basically the same. You have to have been receiving them for 2 years. Now, my question is, do you have to be receiving them for the same job for those 2 years? So can you get a commission? Like if I'm working now for Security Home Mortgage and I just started 6 months ago, can I use my commission to get a loan? No. Okay. Robert says no. No. What if I had a commission job with another lender or another, in the same field, looks good, but they're not going to really look at that. So what if I had another commission job for 2 years before that, and now I just started on a new commission job? Then can I use it? Okay, Caden says yes if you have a 2-year history. Okay, so how do we calculate that though? We're going to calculate it using an average. So we're going to take the last 2 years of commission, add them together, divide by 24 months. And that's how much commission you can count. So,
unless it's decreasing, then we're going to take the most recent. So yeah, Sherry asked, what if the bonus amounts are different every year? If they're increasing, we're going to take the 24-month average. If they're decreasing, we're going to take the most recent, 12-month average.
and if they're decreasing by more than 20%, then we have a problem too, don't we?
We have to be able to show that they're going to continue.
Okay.
Otherwise, an underwriter will throw those out. So great question there. Okay, very good. Okay, any questions at this point, guys? We're almost done. We got about 12 more minutes. Is there anything, I've got more stuff I can go over, but does anyone have any questions or scenarios they'd like to bring up, or I can just continue with the presentation? What would you guys like?
I'd like to ask one question, James.
Please.
From the agent's perspective, what do you like for loan officers to do? Because I have, if you have a client, you want to get them pre-approved, what's your favorite thing? Do you like to give the loan officer's information to the client? Do you like to give the loan officer the client's information? What makes you feel most comfortable?
I usually give the client the loan officer's information or introduce in a group text.
And are you worried about giving the loan officer the name just because they'll bug them, or you're not sure if they want to use them? I'm curious.
I think the client a lot of time wants to feel like they have choices. And so I usually say I have 3, to choose from, and whatever they choose, and I'll do a group text, or I'll just give them the 3 numbers up front.
Nice.
Okay, and Sherry's saying the clients typically don't like their info given. I find that it's kind of nice. I mean, if they don't want to, obviously you don't, but it's kind of nice for me to have their information, and sometimes they're nervous to reach out. So anyway, that was just, it's totally a preference. But then, especially when you can't really do anything until they're pre-approved, it's nice to have the loan officer, if you trust them, be able to reach out for you and get that done so that you don't have to worry about it.
So as I've mentioned earlier, guys, I've been a lender for 20 years, done lots of these. I find when the agent gives me the number so I can call the client, our pre-approval percentage goes way up. A lot of times when we just wait for the client, we don't hear from them or whatever. So just a heads up, if you want to increase your close percentage, I think it's better to give that, make sure you're working with a loan officer that'll follow up and then give them that name and number. So, okay, Ariel asked a really good question. Actually, did we miss anybody? Okay. For new agents, what are the red flags? Oops, hang on a sec. For new agents, what are the red flags and green flags to look for with new lender relationships? Really easy. If their name is Edyn, they're going to be amazing. So let me tell you some of the things. Communication is huge. Okay. Communication is probably the biggest thing as far as I'm concerned. The next thing that I want to know is what's their knowledge base? Okay. They meet with a client. Are they able to pre-approve? Can they do a solid? Okay. If they're new, who do they have that's supporting them? Okay. Who can they call? Who can you call if the loan officer doesn't know what they're talking about, that kind of stuff. So really experience, making sure that, that communication is huge. Another thing you want to make sure is just talk with them, because this person is going to be representing you. Anytime you give a referral, your reputation goes with them. And it's funny, I was talking with an agent once, and he had a loan officer that was paying for leads. But he was like, man, I just cringe every time this other loan officer takes my client, because they don't talk well, they don't communicate, and it's really hard. So be careful of that. So, okay, very good.
Yeah, Amy, I think that you're right. Like lenders lead with you, like what you feel comfortable with in their relationship. So that a good lender is never going to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable with your clients. And however, typically, like for me, when I'm working with a new agent, I'm always going to ask them, what do you feel comfortable with? How do you want to do it? So that's very fair.
I love it.
And then, yeah, definitely in-house underwriters help a lot. Security Home Mortgage has in-house underwriters. It makes a big difference than if they're sending their files outside.
So I get recruited all the time from other lenders. There's no way I would work for a lender that does not have in-house underwriting, plain and simple. I was a broker for many years. We would send loans to this month would go to this lender. This deal would go to another lender. I'd have a file underwritten in California. The next one's being underwritten in Washington. The key with in-house underwriting is we know who the underwriters are. We know what they like, what they don't like. Hey, I know that this is going to be a problem, so I need to package it this way, where you just get blindsided when every deal is underwritten by a different underwriter. So great comment there, Sherry. That was a really good comment there. Okay. Very good.
We have in-house jumbo loans too. So I think that's always good to know. There aren't a lot of people who have in-house jumbos that can close in 30 days.
Awesome. Perfect. Let's hit on cosigners really quick. If someone cannot qualify based on income alone, they just don't make enough, or they're self-employed and we can't use their 1 year because they don't have the 2 years, then we can do what's called cosigners. Actually, let me just want this question really quick. Melody, let's see here. Okay, yeah, Melody, I feel like big banks doing the lender are a nightmare. One of my favorite stories is I had a client that was working with Wells Fargo, and there was no way, sorry, another lender, I shouldn't have said that, but there was no way they could get it done in time. And so they asked me to go pick up the package from the loan officer. And the loan officer was like, you're probably going to sell this back to us, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, we probably are. And sure enough, we did the deal, got it done in time, and then sold it back to that original lender. So Laura asks, is in-house underwriting the same as in-house lending? Yes, that is all the same stuff. We have our own underwriters. We have our own doc drawing. We have our own money. We fund the loans in our name and stuff like that. So we do service some of our loans. We do send out, we do sell into the secondary market as well. So, okay, let's go back to, anybody have any other questions before I jump back on? Okay. One of the questions I get asked quite a bit is I'll have a client that doesn't qualify based on credit. Their credit scores are too low. And the agent will ask, well, hey, how about we just get a cosigner? Okay. Cosigners almost never help when it deals with credit. The only time a cosigner helps with credit is if it's a marginal borrower that's getting, they're not getting approved on their own, but we put somebody else on. I had a client come to me that the preferred lender with the builder could not get him to approve. And I couldn't either because the wife was just doing it. I tried putting the husband on. He didn't have any income, but he had a better credit score. And just the fact that putting the husband on, no extra income, made the deal approved where the other lender could not with just a single person. So sometimes that works, but cosigners really step in when the debt to income ratio is too high, and it makes it work that way. Okay, very good. I don't have time for that story. Sorry, guys. We got 4 minutes. I want to end on things that buyers should and should not do after approval, after pre-approval. Okay. So super important, pre-approval does not equal loan approval. So what are some key things that you tell or should tell your buyers not to do until that loan is funded? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, the fifth word. Yeah. Sorry. I'm going to give that to the last. Sorry. I'm going to make you hold on to the last very minute and stuff like that. Okay. Don't get another loan. Don't buy furniture. Yes. Don't open a new credit card. Don't apply for credit. Don't cancel cards. Yes. That's a big one. Don't cancel your credit cards. That can actually lower your credit scores. Okay. Buy a car. Oh my gosh, guys, my brother is a lender also. He pre-approves a client for X amount of dollars. 2 months later, she comes back with a contract. He has to repull credit, and now she has an $800 car payment. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, debt to income ratio doesn't work. And her comment was, but you told me I was pre-approved. And he's like, yes, you were pre-approved before you bought the car. So make sure, yeah, they don't buy that. Don't quit your job. Yes, I had a deal once where the client, we started the loan, and the pre-approval process, they call and they verify the employment. They call me back and they say, hey, the employer says they no longer work here. I call up the client. Hey, they say you don't work there. And he's like, yes, I do. And I go back to my department. They call him again, and they get, no, he doesn't work here anymore. And I call my client the second time and say, come on, level with me here. They've said now twice that you don't work here anymore. And he finally admitted it. Yes, I no longer work here. Okay. That's a problem. Okay. Now, if he quits the day after we fund, not a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal from the lending point of view, but once the loan is funded, it's funded and recorded. Okay. Don't incur more debt. Don't buy a car. One of the biggest things with buying cars is they go to the car lot, and I've seen this multiple times, is the finance guy at the car lot sends it out to literally 50 different lenders. And then I pull credit and I see all these inquiries. Edyn mentioned that inquiries don't hurt. She was talking 1, 2, 3, or 4. 50 inquiries will drop someone's credit scores. Okay. You drop your credit score 20 points with a conventional loan, you're looking at an 1/8 a point higher rate. You drop your score 40 points, you're looking at a 1/4 point higher interest rate. So be very careful with that. I've had, guys, I got a deal right now. It's a refinance. We have to pull credit just before closing. We pulled credit. Guess what? He missed a payment. His credit score dropped 80 points. We cannot refinance him anymore because his credit score is too low and his comment was, sorry, I thought I had it on auto pay. So don't quit your job. Yes. Yep. We've had that happen. Yep. Okay. Very good. Okay, guys, we are out of time. We've hit our time. Our fifth and final keyword for today is pre-approval. Fifth and final keyword is pre-approval. You guys have been fabulous. I'm going to jump off. Edyn, it's your finish up. Take it away. And thank you so much.
Thanks, James. I'll stay on for a few more minutes if anybody has any other questions. If there's anything I can help you with. I often tell people, even if I'm not the lender on your deal, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer your questions and help. I have a couple agents that call me and just say, is this true on some of the deals, just so that they feel comfortable with what's going on. Okay, so Mike's asking, what do we do with the words? So send the keywords to my email address, ejohnson@securityhomemortgage.com. And I can get the other information off your registration so that we can get these credits banked for you. I'll put it in the chat one more time, but yep. ejohnson@securityhomemortgage.com. There you go. Thanks for coming again. If you guys haven't checked out Goldcrest Homes, go to www.goldcresthomes.com. Check them out, see what they're doing. If you have any questions about pre-approvals, don't hesitate to ask me. But like I said, anything else I can help you with, I'm happy to. There's no more questions. I think we're good. Have a great day. Happy Halloween. Have fun trick-or-treating tomorrow night.
Thank you, Edyn.
You're welcome. See ya.